the goalpost keeps moving. So what's good yesterday is not what's good today, right? And at the end of the day, when we look at the current economy and we're looking at like inflation and how prices are going, the pay raises aren't keeping up with all that stuff. So what I'm buying today for, let's say it's $20, could have been $10 yesterday, but my paycheck is still $5. So how do I keep up with that?
You're really getting an entry level. You're definitely not getting six figures right after you start, right? But you're getting an entry level kind of salary. And then you have to pay the school loan. And then eventually, you will have families coming in. You will have your wife, you will have your kids. And then you have all this kind of debt and things that you have to pay for. And when you start accumulating all of that, it's just kind of like, it's an uphill battle, right?
The only way you can experience the world is through your own experiences, right? And you assume that, yes, because I've achieved a certain level of success or I've accumulated a certain amount of money and I see other generation after me struggling, if I take ownership of, yes, in some ways I've contributed to that, then it reflects poorly on me. So the natural thing to say is, yes, other people behind me are somehow lazy or they're not working as hard.
You have to be determined to say that, what do I want to be in the next 10 years? And there's some sacrifices that you have to take today so that in 10 years' time, you can enjoy the benefits of going to the Tulums of the world or going to the Cancuns of the world. But for now, maybe you have to look at your finances and figure out, okay, what can I do to make sure that I'm spending within my means and not above my means? Welcome to episode 5 of the Wealth Wave podcast. My name is Caleb Solomon. I'm the co-founder of Jara Capital and the co-host of the Wealth Wave podcast. I'm here with my co-founder of Jara Capital as well and co-host, Toyyib Morakinyo. What's going on, man?
I'm doing well, my brother. Another episode, another amazing guest. Looking forward to today's session.
I'm also very excited about these guests as well. But before I guess we jump into the podcast today, I wanted to give a quick reason why we typically do this podcast. We are thrilled to have you on this journey with us because our goal is to educate you, enlighten you, and also entertain you in technology, economy, and real estate while trying to inspire you to take action. So before we jump into the topics today, I'll let Toyyib, would you do some justice around the introductions because we have some special guests in the building today? Make sure that you give them a warm introduction.
Caleb, I feel like you always set me up whenever you say that, right? Because we bring on amazing guests and such accomplished individuals on today's podcast that I do not think I can do them proper justice, but I will certainly do my best. And first, I certainly want to start with our first guest. Today, we have Busola Oyefesobi-Ero, who is a transformative compliance and audit executive, right? I mean, folks, this young woman is incredibly accomplished, over 14 years of consulting experience, incredible track record. I'm talking driving risk management, compliance programs across various industry. Her expertise includes controls, governance, risk and regulatory compliance, internal audit, and so much more. Outside of that, she's also an insightful leader. She loves building, coaching, and leading high-performance teams and has such a deep focus on training and development. Undergraduate degree, accounting, and of course, another MBA as well in accounting as well. She is a certified public accountant in 4 states, incredibly passionate about financial health and literacy. Busola, how are you? And thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Caleb, Toyyib, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm very excited. I'm excited to meet your audience and excited for today's conversation. Let's go.
Perfect. One thing, what did I miss? What's one thing I missed that the people should know about you?
One thing is I'm all about stretching my dollar as far as it can go in this life, because I don't know about you guys, but I work so hard to make every penny that I gotta make sure I spend it
wisely. I know that's right. That is absolutely right. Okay. And then we have another special guest today. We have Ephraim, who is a seasoned project management and real estate investor and professional, over 7 years of experience in construction and property management. I mean, the man has managed over $100 million in capital projects totaling over 200,000 square feet, managing and leading teams 50 to 60 people at a time. So yes, he's also leveraging his financial management and engineering education to be able to deliver these projects on time, under budget. He's saving clients millions and certainly helping the companies that he worked for generate millions in return. The man also has a degree in civil engineering as well as a master's in financial management. He's a servant leader, loves family, loves the community. What a wonderful guest to have on. Ayon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Toyyib. Thank you, Caleb, for actually inviting me to your podcast today. It's an honor to be part of this good journey that you guys are in. Thank you very much.
Man, whenever I read both of your bios, I can tell I'm not qualified enough. You both have such great experience. But hey, I'll ask you the same question. What is the one thing that I may have missed that the people should certainly know about you?
I will say I'm more of a service first person. I like to kind of understand people's problems and kind of give them a couple of strategies on how to do it. It's a personality thing and also a professional thing that's kind of meshed together. I can't help it. I think my wife is still trying to help me out with that. But anytime somebody brings out a problem, I just feel like I could try to put a little bit of sense in it just to kind of make their lives better.
Wonderful. Well, thanks you guys for the introduction. We're very excited to have you guys on today's podcast today. And for our audience, the theme for the podcast today will be centered around personal finance and money management. So that'll be the theme for the call. For the podcast today. And to provide a quick roadmap for where we're going to be going, we have some interesting articles or some interesting topics that we're going to be double clicking on today. The first is around, Americans owe, I think, $1.1 trillion in credit card debt. What is driving this? And also, are millennials worse off than their baby boomers? It's a huge debate going on with baby boomers claiming that, they are not doing good. Millennials are saying that, nah, you guys had it great. We're going to talk about that. Number two is going to be around the rich-poor gap. Why is it really widening today? What is driving that as well? And also, we'll make a sharp pivot to the tech layoffs in terms of the recent layoffs happening in the tech industry, and figure out how can a millennial or how can someone navigate the current job market. And lastly, we're going to talk about a topic around a dating app with credit score. It sounds like today, I've not been to the dating market in a while, but it sounds like now the question is, I'd like to know your credit score before I date you. Is that a good idea? Is that the right answer to ask somebody, especially going on a date? So we're going to double click on that. So I'll share my screen real quick just to double click on these few topics. So the first topic will be around the economic challenges today faced by millennials. Do they really differ from the baby boomers? And also a recent article that was published by the University of Chicago Press Journal was talking about how there's been a wealth accumulation, or there's been a wealth gap comparing the late baby boomers with the early millennials. And looking at a brief excerpt from what the journal talked about, it said that we find that the poorest millennials have less wealth than their baby boomer counterparts, but the wealthiest millennials have more, which is very interesting. And going to the next, and the second, topic is there's a question that was raised by this lady called Ashley Jackson, trying to answer the question around, are millennials worse off than baby boomers today? There's about 6 key findings that he found from that research. Number one was wealth. Millennials at the 90th percentile of wealth distribution in the U.S. possessed about 20% of wealth than the baby boomers did at 35. So if you look at the amount between 475 to 375, that is the range you're looking at. In terms of career, baby boomers were likely to land high-status jobs like lawyers and surgeons, versus 17. And it said around 70% of boomers moved to prestigious career path after graduating college, whereas 7.3% of millennials did so. And I'll move to the homeownership piece. I'll quickly breeze through this. Homeownership, 62% of boomers had become homeowners by 35, contracting 49%. What is going on here? Marriage as well, debt, and also the net worth. I think about 14% of millennials had negative net worth by 35 versus 8.7% of the baby boomers. So I guess my question, I'll probably yield the floor to Busola, ladies first. On this podcast, I'd like to go with the ladies. Is what are some of what specific economic challenges did, I guess, the baby boomers face versus millennials, which is driving this, I guess, divide in terms of wealth gap? Like, what is going on here? Or your thoughts on the article or research?
So I think the article is definitely spot on, right? When we think about how life is progressing, I think the one thing that I heard someone say is the goalpost keeps moving. So what's good yesterday is not what's good today, right? And at the end of the day, when we look at the current economy and we look at like inflation and how prices are going, the pay raises aren't keeping up with all that stuff. So what I'm buying today for, let's say it's $20, could have been $10 yesterday, but my paycheck is still $5. So how do I keep up with that? So I think the goal is just, as life is going on, as time is moving on, everything keeps evolving, and the goalpost keeps getting moved. So it's gonna be hard to keep up with that if there's not something more that's being done, right? If we take, for example, right, if we look at the student loan industry, the amount of student loans that millennials have is nothing compared to what baby boomers had. One, baby boomers didn't go to college at the rate that we did. The prices of college keeps going up exponentially. Like, I don't know about you guys, I don't want to age myself, but when I went to college, right, and I look at the price of it was then, my school, and I look at the price now, I'm like, how did I afford this? Of course I had student loans, but if someone I know is going to the school now, I might say, you know what, really, really think about it. And that's the one area where I'm kind of lucky that things ended up for me the way it ended up, because I originally committed to go to one particular school. It was an amazing school. I had my heart set on it, and I was like, yes, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But I wasn't thinking financially, and I was gonna have to take out about $35,000 in loans every year. But I was like, oh, whatever. Everyone has student loans, whatever. But as life would happen, my father got sick, and I was like, you know what? I want to stay closer to home. I don't want to go that far. So I went to a community college for 2 years, and then I transferred to a private school. And at the end of my college career, I didn't have to take out as much loan as I would have with that first college. So imagine me graduating with 120K in loans. Like, you're already in the red before you even start whatsoever. So how do you dig yourself out of that if you don't get a great job?
Yeah. It's like for every disappointment is a blessing, right? So it kind of seemed like that kind of worked in your favor there,
Yes,
especially,
definitely.
and it's true. I think to add on to what Busola said, that's actually true. Because if you think about it, when the baby boomers were graduating college, right, you were not really too much in the red. I think it was more considered, whereas, okay, you do get a career in, let's say, 5, 10 years, that career would pretty much pay off your debt, right? Now, I mean, we have millennials who graduate college, and the salary is not that high. You're really getting an entry level. You're definitely not getting six figures right after you start, right? But you're getting an entry level kind of salary. And then you have to kind of pay the school loan. And then eventually, you will have families coming in, you will have your wife, you will have your kids, and then you have all this kind of debt and things that you have to pay for. And when you start accumulating all of that, it's just kind of like, it's an uphill battle, all right? It's a tough thing to actually kind of be able to get out of. Now, if I was to go back to, the second side of what Caleb was saying, where it was like, hey, the people who actually have enough income, who are millennials, are more than the baby boomers. I wanted to kind of see, I don't know the data, but I would like to kind of see who actually inherited that income from their parents, because that could be a huge significant ratio there, because you don't know, hey, my parents already had, some sort of college fund for us. I'm just going to talk from our own perspective, right?
Yeah.
We're starting, we're picking up where our families left off, right?
Right.
They got us to as much as they could, right? And now we have to kind of get ourselves to the next level, right? In comparison to someone who is already step 15 ahead of us, right? That's a different ratio when you actually look at that, where it's like, we're still we're still out trying to get ourselves out of debt, and you're you're already swimming. You know, the definition of money for those type of people are completely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely plays a huge impact in regards to, you know, the debt and, you know, the status in which people are. I mean, and to top it all off, you know, we do have policies changing. We do have inflation kind of going skyrocket sometimes. It's very hard to actually kind of beat that, especially when they're giving you, and I'm just putting out there just for an example where, you know, you're getting a raise at work for 3%, but inflation is at 5%,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's like a negative raise. You
It's a
gotta make
negative, exactly.
money.
Like you're just not, you're not winning regardless. It's like,
Yeah.
but the funny part about it is, you know, they give it to you as an email, it's like congratulations, you know. So you're dealing with, you don't know if you should be happy or sad, you know. You know, so you're dealing with that every time. So it's really hard to kind of say, hey, um, you know, it's,
Where do you want to be?
I believe it's something that is alarming, of course,
It is.
and I know the government is actually seeing it. The data is there. I mean, it's not lying. They
Yeah.
need to do something about it, and I'm sure they're actually looking at something to do for it.
Yeah, and Toy, I'll set it up for you beautifully. So it's not just to give the audience some context. You know, baby boomers were born between the years of 1946 and 1964. So anyone who is between the ages of 60 and 70 to 80 years old, that is a baby boomer. And millennials are between 1981 and 1996. So anyone between the ages of 28 and 43 years old is a millennial. And if you look at some context, baby boomers are often they're often categorized as valuing hard work, loyalty, and following the rules. And I mean, they tend to prioritize climbing the corporate ladder and be more comfortable in terms of the traditional work structures. Whereas millennials are often, you know, and they often describe that having the work-life balance and seeking
Yeah.
purpose in their life and being more comfortable. So, with this backdrop of, in terms of you know, the perceptions that have been created for baby boomers of them being valuing hard work in millennials, we want to, you know, want to work, but I also want to play too. Is that what is driving the world gap here, Toyib, or is this a facade?
Not at all. And maybe, you know, others might say it's because you're a millennial, right? You're biased, but not at all, right? It's easier to see the world, right? The only way you can experience the world is through your own experiences, right? And you assume that, yes, because I've achieved a certain level of success or I've accumulated a certain amount of money, and I see other generation after me struggling. If I take ownership of, yes, in some ways I've contributed to that, then it reflects poorly on me. So the natural thing to say is, yes, other people behind me are somehow lazy or they're not working as hard. But Busola mentioned something that's incredibly critical around, you know, when boomers were going to college, right? If you look at the 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s, they weren't going to college at the same rate that millennials are, right? A higher percentage of millennials are in college, and even the following generations. Two is they didn't take out as much student loans. College weren't as expensive, as Busola mentioned. They did, you know, it wasn't as expensive as it is for millennials. I think one of the stats that less than 50% of the boomers who went to college needed to take out any kind of student loans, while more than 2/3 of college students have some kind of student debt. So that gives you a sense of what is even costing us to go in. And lately, I've been thinking a lot about compound interest, guys, right? To talk about financial terms. And I'm thinking about compound interest recently because I've started to realize how some of these small decisions that seems inconsequential at times over a period of time start to compound and become incredibly more impactful than what you realize. So when you
Mhm.
start out, to your point, right, and I was looking at, okay, three key pillars of wealth. One being, right, traditionally anyways, high education, right? Then you think about marriage, and then you think about home ownership. Those three things. Well, if I came out of college and I'm in a college and I have $60,000-$70,000 in student debt, I'm already in the red, as Busola said. And then I come out and my job is paying me 40 grand. Well, that's not setting me up. And then I also delay marriage. So I'm not also getting married. I'm delaying the ability to be in a dual household income, start thinking about wealth building with somebody else. And then third, it also limits my ability to afford homes. So now you have, right, that's why I talk about that compound interest, because you started out with a student loan debt, it pushed back so many things. And now you are right. You're 35 and you're not where you are compared to your parents or other generations versus Ayo's point just last year around people who maybe were fortunate enough to have their parents pay for college. If you came out of college debt free and you got a job making 60, 70,000, you might be thinking, oh yeah, sure, I'm in a better position. Let me save, retirement. I get married. I have a dual household income. I buy a house. And now I look up, I'm 35 and I'm much more ahead of my peer just because of where we all started, right? So I see some of that happening now.
Again, these are great points that you raised, but also sometimes, luck plays a role, in terms of world building. For example, the baby boomers, they grew up in a period of huge economic expansion and also social change as well, especially for the African American community, the civil rights movements as well, and also technology advancements as well. The stage of the computer and also the internet as well also help them to build wealth for them. Millennials could argue that, hey, listen, I grew up in a time with 9/11 attacks, Great Recession, and I was convinced, or I was still the boat of goods, that going to college is a key for me to be, is a huge component to attaining the American dream, only to realize that maybe going to college was not necessarily a good investment. So to that, you say what, Busola?
It's complicated. I remember when I was in college and I had a friend who was going to college because as a Nigerian, that's like the way of life. You graduate high school, you go to college. There's no ifs, ands, or but. And this person was really struggling. I was like, you know what? Maybe college isn't for you. They like to do things with their hand. They were interested in going to the military. And then I was talking to my mom about it. My mom was like, why would you tell him to think about dropping out of college? I'm like, because college is not for everyone.
Yes.
And he finally got the courage to speak to his parents, and he dropped out of college and went into the military and has a very successful and great life being in the military. He's been in the military now for 10 plus years,
Yeah.
So it's like we are bred on certain things. We're coached in certain ways of life. But in reality, we need to start and continuing to challenge the baby boomers that the way you see things might not be the right way. Right? And the way things worked for you back when you were growing up, as I mentioned earlier, the goalpost is changing. The world is evolving. What's good 10 years ago is not what's good today or what's going to be good tomorrow, right? We all know about how back in the day was like, you know what? You had to go to the best of the best college, the Ivy Leagues and whatnot, to get a great job. Not to say the Ivy Leagues aren't the best. Don't get me wrong, right? But it's kind of watered down.
I went to Columbia University. I'm not sure if you're trying to hit on me, but I'm just kidding.
Like my sister
hold on.
we're proud of her. That's my, hey, you know what? I have two sisters that are smarter than me. One went to Columbia, one went to Oxford. I have Ivy League in my family. But at the end of the day, it's about what are you doing with that degree? What connections are you making in college? What experiences are you having in college, and how are you building and developing yourself so that way when you get out, you can handle what life throws at you? It's not just enough to say, you know what, I went to the best school and I'm done. It's about so what and what? What have you done outside of that? Everyone has a degree. What's going to make you different?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I think within the last poll or two polls, I was talking about how Richard Nixon actually changed in terms of the rules of engagement in terms of how we approach money. Because remember, the dollar was pegged to the gold, but when the US dollar was unpegged from the gold, money became valueless in the sense that now you could print money. All I have to go is go to the central bank, print dollars, so it devalues it. So with this context in mind, I wanted to pivot to the credit card component to it, because there's a huge article about credit card debt. I think record amount of Americans owe today $1.1 trillion in credit card debt, and it's straining their budgets. And if you look at the credit card delinquencies today, it soared more than 50% in the past year.
Yeah.
And the Fed is finding that 6.4% of all accounts are now 90 days past due, up from 4%. So I wanted to do it, so that's one component to it. And the other component is around, sorry about that, I wanted to understand, okay, of the credit card, I wanted to see in a family with a portfolio of, let's say, debt, I wanted to figure out, okay, what percentage of debt is credit card? And it sounds like it's 6%. Majority of most families' debt is mortgage, 70% of that, and 6% is credit card debt. The red bar is the student loan debt is 9%, and the gray bar is the other. The orange line is the mortgage. And finally, I wanted to share one article talking about in terms of the delinquencies. Student loan has somewhat plummeted down to zero, up from the I think it was in Q1 of 18. It was a lot of delinquencies, but it's plummeted to zero. Auto loans is kind of like ticked up a little bit. It's approaching close to 5%. The only debt that is going up in terms of delinquency rate is credit card debt. So I guess I wanted to, a question for Busola. I wanted to understand, is America really, like, do we love debt? I'm trying to understand the psychology of the American millennial today. Why do we like to get debt? Like, why do we want to, but like, why debt? That's my question.
I wouldn't say we love debt, right? Like take personal experience, right? In college, I lived off of my credit cards. However, I was financially smart about that. In terms of my bookload of credit cards, it's about knowing what's my cycle, when does my start and end day of that statement begins, when is my due date, and being able to smartly figure out when I'm going to use work hard for what purchase so that way I can extend when I need to pay off. The good thing about that is, thankfully, I was able to make my full payments at the end of each month, meaning that I'm not getting interest, I'm not paying any late fees, and I'm getting what I call like a free loan to be able to live my life the way I want to live it, without having the cash handily available, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people can't do that for various reasons. Whether it's they're not financially savvy about how statement periods work and how due dates work, or life happens, they get sick, they lose their job, and they become solely dependent on living off of credit card debt. If we look at during the pandemic, right, when people were losing their jobs, people can't go to work, all they had was their credit card to rely on in order to get the basics. And the good thing about that is, if you use your credit card and you have credit card debt, there's nothing they can repossess, right? They can't repossess your house, they can't repossess your card, they can't repossess the food that you ate yesterday or the clothes on your back.
Whatever. That's somebody else's problem, right?
So a lot of people are dependent on that, and then it starts to balloon. Imagine if you have a credit card where, let's say, you spent $1,000, right? And your interest rate, because we know credit card interest rates are the highest out there, is, let's say, 27%. And you're making your minimum payment of $21 every month. At what point are you going to finish paying it? You're going to end up paying more in interest than the original balance. And for some people, the ability to just make that minimum payment so that with your balance is current is what we're seeing. And then it gets to a point where it's like, it's a lot and they can't handle it. And they're either filing for bankruptcy or they're seeking out opportunities with like companies that help with debt settlements and debt resolution. Like, hey, I have 100 grand in credit card debt. How can you guys help me? How can you go to the creditors on my behalf to negotiate my debt and reduce it down? And of course, you're going to pay them a fee. Well, at the end of the day, you're still kind of well off, but then your credit is also damaged. So it becomes that revolving door that Toyyib you mentioned earlier, where it's like, if one aspect isn't right, everything then becomes a compounded interest. It's a trickle down effect. No, without good credit, some jobs won't even hire you. Without good credit, you can't buy a car, at least finance a car, or if you do finance it, you get predatory lending.
Yeah, the rates is
Without
crazy.
credit, you can't buy a house.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think again the baby boomer will be saying that we deserve it. Why? Because we have a culture of YOLO. You only live once. Let's go out and party. Or FOMO, fear of missing out. That's what the baby boomer generation will be. So Toyyib, to that, like, are they wrong?
I have to be honest here. There is some truth to that, right? And I don't want to blame everything on the rise of social media and all of that, but Busola, you did mention back in college, and I was a college student too, and I have a lot of college friends where a lot of college students were financing their entire lifestyle on credit cards. And most of us might have done that, but only a few had, I think, the discipline to be able to properly manage it. And I remember, certainly in college, and I have friends who, right, because I did spring break in Miami too, so I'm not throwing shit at anybody, but like people who go do spring break in Miami and max out credit cards, right? You're spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 because you just want to go to spring break and I'm young, I'm only going to live once. Oh, these debts are going to worry about themselves. When I'm 25, I'm going to get a great job. And then you come out of college and you're like, how did I get into $20,000, $25,000 worth of credit card debt? And then when you trace it back, it's because you're buying Gucci belt, you're buying, right, Christian Dior sandals, you're living, you're doing Hermes, you're down in Miami every other weekend. Like, and as a college student, I think you also feel that pressure. And I was looking at like, how is this people who have no jobs? I know your parents ain't giving you money like that. How are you down in Miami this weekend and Vegas next weekend for Memorial Day? But those are the kind of things I think we did see, and I certainly saw, friends who are undisciplined, and that definitely caught up to them. And maybe there is some of that sense of, you know what, guys, I'm young. It is what it is. Let me live fast. But then you wake up and you're 30 and credit card debt is you're drowning in credit card debt. So,
Good
hey,
point.
I don't know if you took. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I mean, yeah, it's true. I mean, we do know for sure external pressure does actually influence you into actually kind of spending your credit card debts, which is true to many degrees. Um, I kind of see a correlation in affordability and credit card debt too, though, where it's like, um, when there is something that you really need, like a necessity, which pretty much everything is right now, right? And you don't have that income that's coming in to actually be able to take care of that. You have no choice but to kind of get into credit card debt. And if we were to look at it from the lender's perspective, right? Truthfully, it's a gift that keeps on giving, right? Like if you think about it, to them it's just because it's easy to get credit cards. Let's be honest, it's very easy to
Yes.
get credit cards. I mean, sometimes when they do this advertising, they really know where your pain point is. Like they know you've been working for 2 years, so you need that vacation. So they would do a commercial with vacation and a credit card, right? So you see yourself using that or something like that, right? But my point to it is like because it's so easy to use that and it's such an unsecured loan, you know, people see that as the easy, like, the go-to answer to any problem
Didn't
they
use
have
it.
or any stress they have, right? So you're stuck with that and you're not really looking at what the repercussions are until like when that time really comes, and then you're like, man, I really wish I hadn't have swiped that card, right? But when you're actually using it, you don't really know that. Or I mean, to a certain degree, when you're facing financial issues, you just have no choice to use
You just
that.
you kick the bucket down the line. You just say,
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna
just
take
keep
care of it
kicking it,
later
man.
on. It's
Just
gonna get
hoping,
solved.
yeah, just hope for some rainy day,
yeah,
and hopefully some forbearance when credit cards or something comes up, you know.
exactly. And just
But
no,
but
finish your thoughts about that.
no, please go ahead. But
And
that
I'm
was
about to
all.
say it definitely makes sense because this chart. Look at this chart. Again, this from the New York Fed. If you look at the trend lines for the auto loan debt, it's kind of like tipped and plateaued. Mortgage debt is around 200 million people, 300. Credit card debt keeps going up. So I'm like, wait, hold on a second. You know that this person who's applying for the credit card can't service their debt. Why are you, Busola?
We need
Credit
Busola on
card
this.
companies, are the credit card companies being predatory towards users? I still don't understand because this
I
is
think
going
it's
up with
a
high
mix. I
interest
think it's a
rates.
mix. I think there are some
Mhm.
companies that probably are, right? They have a target
Mm.
market for certain cards and they go after that target audience and that consumer, because the rates are like Ayo mentioned, it's unsecured debt, right? So they'll give you a crazy high interest. And when you're backed in a corner and you have no other option, you're gonna take it, right? But it also comes down to financial education, right?
Mm.
Are people being educated on what I call the proper way to use a credit card? I know me, for example, and I think a lot of us would probably say, like, our parents never explained all of that to us. If anything, they shielded us because we never knew how much they made. We never knew how things were being done. We just know when we wanted something, our parents either told us yes or no. They kept us fed, they kept us in good clothes, and they made sure that we were doing good, right?
Yeah.
But it's like it wasn't until I grew up and I started doing my parents' taxes and I'm looking at years and years and returns. I'm like, wait, my parents made this much taking care of 3 kids and they
Mm.
had a
Man.
house. And every other summer we went to the UK for summer vacation. Like,
Wow.
how did they manage this? Right.
Yes.
Right.
But they did it. But I think it starts young, right? And for those that have kids on the show, in the audience, it's like teaching all of this to your kids so that way when they get to college, they are being smart about it. We had friends who were getting refund checks who thought the refund checks were free money, not knowing that it was increasing their student loans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone was doing
Mm.
it in their circle, they're like, oh, let me get that refund check. Instead of them to decline and say, you know what, I don't want that because that's a loan and I don't need this money.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, if no one is educating people or educating us, how do we know what's better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of things are out there. It's like, oh, use credit cards because there's points, there's mileage, there's free travel, there's discounts. If you use credit card correctly, it's the strongest weapon you can have in your pocket.
Mm.
But when used wrongly, it's the worst enemy you can ever have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely can be a
It's
double-edged sword for sure.
it's a
So speaking
powerful
about
tool.
that, how do we help our audience? Do you have any financial strategies for not just managing credit card alone? How do they, from a personal finance perspective? Maybe I'll start with AO. How can somebody manage their money in this era of higher interest rates, or how should we be looking to manage their money today?
Oh, that's a great question because, this is how I see it, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think, like I said, I've always believed that external factors play a huge role in the way people
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of work. I think people just need to be true with themselves, what they actually bring in comparison to what you actually spend. I mean,
Mm.
I'm not saying, you're not in the same status as a rich person, right? But we should see how a rich person kind of live their lifestyle, right? They do not spend 100% of their income that comes in, right? They do spend maybe 10% of it, right? And then they have maybe 90% or 60% of it actually making them more money. So I think when it comes to a stage where we know our parents, but like when it comes to a stage where you've worked so hard to get to
Mm-hmm.
where you need to get to, right? And
Yeah.
then you get there, right? You feel like you want everybody to know, or people are even so happy to say that you got there that you just don't want to disappoint them based on how you actually are currently living and stuff like that. But truthfully, I feel like people should just kind of put the self and understand that they're creating their own world, right?
Yeah.
And you have
Yeah.
to create a world that is sustainable for you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if you do it that way, people will still be people. People will still like you regardless of what it is. But you just have to kind of start living below what you actually bring in. You
Yeah.
cannot spend literally 90. I don't even think 90% is even. I think
Listen,
90% is
there.
too much
Some people are
sometimes.
spending
Like,
110 of what they make. Okay,
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
exactly. And I
Yeah.
believe that's what it is because people are not really accounting for those unforeseen circumstances that will happen. You
yeah.
know, you're driving and all of a sudden you get sick. You got to go to the hospital. Now you got a medical bill that you need to pay for. You didn't know you was going to actually get into that situation. So people are not really prepping for those. People are not really kind of storing things to the side for those blind spots that you actually have in the future. And truthfully, we could only know as much as the mentors we have, right? But even
Mm.
them too, they made certain mistakes, and they're still going to continue to
Yeah.
make mistakes. So I've always felt like,
Yep.
you know, I always work in numbers. So talk about Caleb, you guys know this, but like I always work in numbers. So it's like for me, I always feel like you should live truthfully no more than 20% of what you bring in, right?
That's
And
tough.
You're
that
harsh. You're
That's
so
80%,
tough.
confident.
That's really
yeah,
good, but that's
and
tough.
that yeah,
Okay.
it is tough. It really is. It really is tough. And with the other 80% that you actually have, you could then work it the way you want to. You have to save something. You have to have something making you more of what you actually made, and then have something for a rainy day. Something that actually just for the future. You don't know where that is going, right? I mean,
Mhm.
really wish we all had college funds, right? We really wish like our parents had done that for
Yeah.
us, right? But now we're thinking about it because that's why, to a certain degree, I'm always saying to myself, I'm happy I'm a millennial, right?
Mm.
Because we're very, very unpredictable in comparison to baby boomers, right? Like you just don't know where we're coming from, right? You might think we're
Right.
going this way, and then we're just like,
Switch it up.
completely different. So I believe that's the thing about us is always like we have the opportunity to at least even be self-aware of where
Yeah.
we are, right? And not we do get influences, but we are very much self-aware of where we are, and then we could then correct that before somebody kind of takes you the wrong way. Like for example, right? We really wish there was a podcast in the 1970s, right? I'm sure like there would be a lot of knowledge being shared during that time.
Mhm.
There wasn't enough
Mhm.
technology to actually kind of share that. So I feel like, uh, you know, the knowledge in which we're actually kind of sharing with each other to be able to know that, okay, yes, you are a six-figure guy now, but that doesn't mean you should go for that new X class that just came out, or like
Okay.
that new BMW that just came out and kind of put an auto loan and
Stop it
stuff
there,
like that
yo.
just to kind of live
Okay.
that
That's
status.
that's
But if you're actually
that's my dream
driving,
car.
you know,
Are you telling me I should buy my dream car right now? Is that what you're telling me? But all right, keep
No.
going.
I'm just saying the Mini Cooper might be good for you, Aaron.
Oh no, oh
I'm
no.
just kidding.
Busola, do you agree with that?
See, that's where it stands from, right? Kind of like what you were saying. In the baby boomer years, there wasn't social media, right? Social media can be good and bad, right? And talking about planning for emergencies. Last year, my husband had to go to the ER and racked up
Mm.
medical bills that
Yeah.
insurance covered their portion apparently. And I'm like, we're stuck with this crazy buildup. It's like, okay, well, first of all, it threw I would call it my budget because it calls it my budget out of the loop. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what's going on? We're not pulling out of savings to pay for this. So what are we going to do? But my sister was telling me that she was just listening to something on TikTok the other day that said you can actually negotiate medical bills with the providers. And I was
Yeah.
like, really? I called them
Mm.
up and they said, if you paid in full today, we'll give you 60% off. What did I do? Sign up for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Without social media, I wouldn't have known that. We would have just gone on a regular payment plan because why not do a payment plan if it's 0% interest, you know?
Right,
Right.
right.
And paid up the entire bill when I didn't have to do that. It goes down to knowing exactly what A is saying, right? You have to know what's coming and what's going, and that's what I'm a big fan of, right? I probably do a lot more than I need to, but I need to know where my dollar went every month.
Every month,
And
every dollar.
person, because I grew up in the accounting space, I download all of our household transactions, go through line by line. We analyze, okay, well, how do we do compare this month to last month? What went up, what went down? What's the reason behind it? Because something has to drive it. And is this something that's going to keep going on for the next month, or is this a one-off situation?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't do that. They just said, okay, you know what? This is my total credit card bill. Fine, whatever. I'm going to pay it in full, or I'm going to pay whatever I can pay. But that's how it becomes a pattern if you don't know where your money is going. And what we're seeing from the wealthy folks is they're letting their money work for them. So how is your money working for you?
Mhm.
Or are you just worried about, you know what, I'm getting my paycheck in 2 weeks or middle of the month, I'm good.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
out there? And let's be honest, in today's world, your main job is not it.
Right, right.
agree.
Yeah. No, again, I think
Economy, with the way the economy is going and with these layoffs, you have to have something to fall back on. I know someone who's been laid off and they've been job hunting for over a year.
Wow.
But thankfully for them, they had a nice cushion that
Mhm.
they're not stressed. How many people can do that?
Right,
Yeah. Long.
right,
Yeah.
right.
How many people can survive without a job for over a year?
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think,
true.
and the audience, I mean, they understand the problem, but I need some solution. Toyyib, can you
They
give
gotta
our
start
audience
tracking.
what are some
Busola
of
said-
your principles for managing money? I understand, spend, do not spend more than you make. What else?
Yeah, listen.
I'll say
Busola
read
started
the
it.
book,
You gotta
The
track.
Psychology of Money.
That's actually a good one.
Tracking your
reading
income?
book,
Okay.
tracking your income. You need every single cent every month, and
Okay.
my wife hates this as well. But yeah, I go manually. I go open up Excel. I want to know to the cent, and you got to track. You got to be very intentional. Here's how much I pay in rent, energy, utility, car note, everything. What is that every single month? You need to track that consistently. And then two, you need to take a look at that of how much of this is really what I need, what I want, and how much of this is really being driven by external influences, right? And I think that's the other thing to think about when you budget. And it's okay. You see people on a nice vacation. You think to yourself, yes, you know what? I too will go to Tulum. Is that in your budget? If it's not in your budget, it's okay to listen. It's okay to tell the wife or your partner or your girlfriend, we just not going. We gonna go to Applebee's. Listen, it's all right. And one of the things I feel like I'm grateful for is, and not to say that we all don't get stressed or be influenced by external, but I never try to do more than I'm capable of, right? And I feel like sometimes people try to do more than they're capable of, or you make $100,000, I need to live $100,000 lifestyle. I make $1 million, I need to live that lifestyle. You got to get out your mouth, out your mind. You are building your family's financial future. When you're 35, when you're 40, when you're 50, you don't want to be looking around saying, where did all my money go? So you need to get away from, hey, if it's Applebee's, it's Applebee's. And if it's Ruth Chris one night, it could be Ruth Chris, but that's not how we're going to live our lifestyle, and that's okay. I think the third thing, though, is especially with people who have paychecks directly, what I found is if you find a way, especially if you work with your employer, to have the money deducted or moved out of those accounts before you even hit your paycheck. So like a 401k, you kind of have that already going up front before you get your check. You have it going to a different saving. So when you get your regular check into your bank account, you get, let's say 500, 1,000. What I find is you will adjust. So if you have 2,000 coming to that account, you're going to spend all 2,000. If you have 3,000, you're going to spend all 3,000. And the more you can do a lot of that automated out, I think the better you'll be.
And again, that's a
100%
good
agree.
point.
I 100% agree with that. I'll be honest. It really works. One other thing I wanted to add to that, Drew, is this is such a great topic and very broad at the same time. But we always got to remember we all have different personalities too, right? So, somebody's personality of spending would definitely be different from somebody else's personality of spending. What you really like is different from somebody else's. Somebody might just like boats and they just buy boats all day, right? And you might have a different personality of what you like. I think what we're trying, if I'm correct, what we're doing here, of course, is just building a foundation on the financial side, right?
Mhm.
Regardless of what kind of personality you have and what it really does for you. And I think that is true. When you know exactly, when you self-identify what you like and what you don't like, or what doesn't really phase you, it's easy for you to kind of build this foundation that we're talking about, where it's like out of sight, out of mind. You kind of have money going into here and here, and what you have is this. And then you could use that to kind of build a personality that you really like. And I think it goes back to like your personal identification of what you like, because if Busola likes to travel a lot, right? To, let's say, Cancun and stuff
Aruba.
like that.
Oh,
And my
Busola's a
own thing is
vacationer. You know?
right. And it's like, okay, and if my own thing is more of going to, I don't know, gun shows or something like that, right? Or I just like to go to soccer games. You could see that our personalities are different, right? But there's a foundation that we could have at the same time, which is we know what we like, right? We know how much we want to spend on those, right? We could create, like, what we have coming in, what we're stashing to the side for those personalities, and what we have for the future, and actually what we could spend right now on whatever it is, right? And
Okay.
if that actually equates to just me not going to Bus Boys and Poets, which Texas does not know anything about, right, Busola? And if that's not what it is, and it's just literally, I don't like McDonald's, so I can't use them. But let's say Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A is what it is, then
Mhm.
that's what it is.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at the end
What
of
are
the
the
day, you
trade-offs?
get to do what you really love at the end of the year or during the year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is go to boat shows or
Yeah.
travel around the way you really want it. And I
Yeah.
always say, just read Psychology of Money. I think
You
it
got
I
to read
think it
it.
opened my eyes as well to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
So
think
I
the
okay, go
oh,
ahead, Busula.
I
Oh,
think
go
the
ahead,
core
Busula.
thing is one, right? No matter what school of thought you are, whether you're on the cash envelope method, you're on the credit card method, there are various things out there that you can figure out what works best for you. I
Hmm.
think the core and what's the same out of all of these methods is having a budget and knowing exactly what are you anticipating on spending on, and then doing a reconciliation at the end of the month or at the end of whatever period you choose in terms of, like, how did I actually do? Was my budget realistic or not? Do I need to adjust my budget? And the one thing I would say that I started doing this about 3 years ago, is pay myself first. So I have an
That's a
account
good point.
that's
Yeah.
a bill, right? It's on there, and that's the first bill that gets paid every month. In addition to the 401k that gets automatically deducted, but the Bank of Busola sends a bill every month, and that's the first bill I pay
Okay.
Yeah.
before anything else. Even on months where I might be short, and short in the sense that what's coming in is not going to cover what's going out, because that might be the month that we went on a crazy vacation, and we knew we should have
Yeah.
probably pushed back when we bought the plane ticket, so that way the credit card can be due the following month, but we couldn't wait because it was a
Okay.
great deal, and you can't pass up those great deals.
I mean,
Yeah.
People are still getting paid, and it's just, you know what,
You got
we're
to
gonna
make
figure
sure.
out, is there a bill that we can push to the next month, so that way we're
Right.
not dipping into the savings for something that we don't need to dip into, or if we are dipping into it this month, we're gonna make sure that we replace it the following month, right?
Yeah.
And setting a target in terms of what's my target saving rate for this month or for this
Hmm.
year. This year, I want to save 10% of my entire pay, or I want to save a set amount. Then break it up, whether it's on a monthly, weekly, or quarterly basis, and try to catch up to that. Don't just say, you know what, I'll get it next month. I'll get it next month. Then you look at it and you're like, oh my God, I've been saying next month, but when is next month gonna come up?
Okay.
Again,
That's right.
these are all great points. I'm hearing live below your means by within your needs, tracking your expenses, having a target budget, um,
Or avoiding lifestyle creep.
Get an airplane, man.
lifestyle
Over.
Okay.
people. So at the end of the day, I think there's a quote that I truly imbibe. It said, short-term pleasure will lead to long-term pain, but short-term pain will lead to long-term pleasure. I remember when I was in 2015, graduated from college, a lot of debt. I told my girlfriend at that time, who's not my wife, like, listen, this whole year we're gonna be eating rice and beans and rice. We are gonna
Okay.
kill this student loan debt. And within 1 year, it's amazing how, if you have a goal, as you said, to be solar, a target of doing something, it happened. We were to clear uh, um, complete our student loan debt or pay off our student loan debt in a year. So
Right.
having a target and sacrificing the short-term pleasure, we didn't go out to eat. We're cooking at home. So these are some of the things. At the end of the day, like you said, the psychology of money, you have to be determined to say that what do I want to be in the next 10 years? And there's some sacrifices that you have to take today so that
Hmm.
in 10 years' time you can enjoy the benefits of going to the Tulums of the world or going to the Cancuns of the world.
Okay.
But for now, maybe you have to look at your finances and figure out, okay, what can I do to make sure that I'm spending within my means and not above my means? And
Right.
Mm-hmm.
there's a
Right.
principle in capitalism called a zero-based budgeting, which basically
Yep.
talks about how you allocate every dollar of your income to a specific expense category. So every dollar, every month, grocery bill, I'm going to spend $400 on groceries. I'm going to spend $300, whatever the case. You allocate every dollar and then every dollar to the savings as well. So that way you don't overspend. One of the things that I wish somebody would have created is a platform that will hold the user accountable. Because sometimes we have all this grandiose, oh, I'm going to do this, but we overspend. Mint doesn't do a good job. Personal capital helps you to check, what your net worth
Yeah.
is. There is no application today that is holding the user accountable to not overspend.
That's
So
what
that
your
is one
friends
thing that
are
I
for,
wish.
That's what your communities are for, right? Having
That's true.
people with the right mindset, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in your group of people, what do you guys talk about? Do you guys talk about money? Do you guys talk about the real issues, or are you guys just talking about what's rolling or what sports show is coming up, or what did this person see on that talk show?
Right. Right.
That's
Blow
the
money
thing that I was
fast.
having a conversation with my cousin last week, and she was like, you know what? I'm getting to that age. I'm about to be 40. I don't know why I have so many great people in my network, but like we don't talk about entrepreneurship.
You
We
know.
don't talk about what are we doing to better ourselves? What are we doing to grow our dollar?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Aren't you
Yeah.
Right.
to start
Preach.
that? And I think that's what your podcast is about, where it's like, let's talk about those conversations that might be uncomfortable.
Right.
Some people might not like talking about how much they make. You don't have to say the dollar, but it's like, what are you doing? And like, what's working for you that you can share with your community, with your environment. They're like, you know what? Hey, I started doing this and it's working for me. Let me share it with you. Maybe it can work for you as well. Like
Right.
gathering together
True.
and having those food for thoughts discussion and just those heavy conversations. Because like Toyyib, like you mentioned, right? Back when you were in college, and I'm sure that probably still happens today, where you're going on vacation with people, and let's be honest, some people probably cannot afford it, but they don't want to be left out. They don't want
Yeah.
people to know that they're not on the same level, so they're gonna struggle and they're gonna go.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
Yeah.
and it's like there's some months where it's like even for us, where it's like in my household, where thankfully God, we've had great jobs, we've made great money, where we go on a no spend month. So it's like we tell ourselves 30 days we're not spending anything. We're only
Yeah.
paying utilities and bills, and we're not going out to eat. We're not buying anything. We're literally just buying the necessity just so we can save additional. Just because the past 3 months we went crazy for no reason whatsoever. So we need to reel ourselves back in and come back to the ground.
Right. Because we're
Yeah.
humans,
Yeah.
like we're very, to a certain degree, we're even unpredictable to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because there are certain things we just
Yeah.
do, and then we look back and we're like, man, only have I hadn't done that, right? And that's why I really like that idea, that Busola was talking about, is at least if you see how your money is moving, right,
Mhm.
on a monthly basis, you could get to catch yourself where, you're doing something wrong, right? Or you could even say, okay, I did this 3 months ago, right? I'm not doing that this time, and it
Yeah.
goes back to like, self-discipline is like your future you thanking your present you, right?
Absolutely.
Telling you, thank you for doing that, because you're not, self-discipline is really for the future, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and that's the reason why I feel like when it comes to finance, once you build that foundation and kind of you just kind of follow it, it's really discipline. I think the
It
the
is.
biggest the biggest the biggest battle anybody would ever face, and we all know this on this platform already, is like the biggest battle you could ever win is the fight with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And
Just with
teaching
yourself.
yourself to
Absolutely.
actually go a way you want to go, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like finance just tacks onto that. There's always going to be
Yeah.
free money. There's always going to be free money. There's always going to be that corporate company is free to
Yeah.
give you that credit card to spend. I think it's up to you to say to yourself, yes, I'll take this. And like Busola said, it is a great weapon to actually have in your arsenal when you actually use it right. But
It
if
is.
you actually just don't it goes back to like, if you don't help yourself say this is exactly what I'm using it for because it's gonna make me back twice the amount that I'm actually spending it on, then there's no
Don't do
point,
it.
right? You
Yep.
could be able to tell yourself straight up, like, okay, sorry, it's just not working, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, your friends will still be your friends. I mean, they're not going nowhere. And truthfully, like
Well, the good ones, Ayo.
yeah, the good
No,
ones, right?
the good
Yeah, you're
ones,
right.
the ones that matter.
Yeah, you're right. And the good ones will stay. They always say, when you they always say like when you show your true self, right, the real friends stay, right? So you always have them, and that's not a problem at all, especially with finances. Finance is a tough thing,
Yeah.
but we always just encourage people. I really wish I, I just want us to think about it for a minute. Like, if this platform and the baby boomers even had this during their time, I'm sure we would be way ahead of where we are right now, because they would have had that conversation community, like Busola said, where it's like
Yeah.
they would have had a community of conversations, right? We know
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 brains is better than one, right? You could be able to kind of piecemeal, take a piece from this person, take a piece from this person, and be able to kind of create a perfect system for yourself, right?
Mhm.
But that's why I'm
Perfect.
saying I love
Perfect sentence.
millennials. Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy I'm a millennial and preferred.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
that's
speaking
That's
about,
perfect.
and the biggest battles that is happening right now, especially people are struggling to manage the money. People don't. There's a lot of layers that have happened. I think this week there's a lot of job losses mount as the nuance of layoff has hit the tech sector, and then I think they said that tech companies have already shed more than 34,000 jobs since the start of 2024. That is quite a huge number. And now comparing this over time, if you look at in terms of from January 2022 all the way to 2024, this is like millions of people who've been laid off. The red or the pinks is the employee laid off. The blue line signify the companies with layoffs.
Yeah.
This is a lot. I mean, this is quite a lot. And however, it's very interesting. There's a lot of layoffs that have happened, but also the unemployment rate is still at an all-time
Very low.
quite low. So I guess today, Busola. No, I'll start with Toyyib. Toyyib, given that you work for a good tech company and you understand what's going on in the market, I'd like to get your thoughts around. Yes, interest rates has affected companies
course.
to right size their business. Obviously, inflation as well. I think last week we talked about how AI is also automating away some
Absolutely.
jobs, or it's replacing humans. So I guess from your perspective, what should the recent graduate today, or what should a millionaire today do to position themselves to get a job in this
Yeah.
market condition?
It's an interesting market that we're operating in for sure, right? Because I think a lot of us saw in 2021 and 2022 there was like that bloating, right? Like, I mean, unemployment was super low. Everybody was hiring. A lot of companies went out and they hired a lot of people, and some would say they even overhired, right? COVID helped to accelerate a lot of future demands and kind of pulled it forward. And then you saw last year and even this year, companies are resizing and they're reducing their rate of hiring. My big key takeaway, I was thinking through this as well. I have a younger sister who's in college, who's thinking about internships. She's thinking about employment after college now. And my big key takeaway with her, and as I'm working with her, 3 key things. One, I think, is we all have to get very clear on our value story to a potential employer, right? This is an exchange of services in some ways. Here's who I am. Here's what I've done. Here's what I bring to the table. Here's how I help your organization. And here's why it makes sense for me to be part of, right? Here's why you should want to hire me. Get very clear on the value story, right? I am a computer science engineering student. I've done these great projects. I've worked with these great companies. And, here's what I'm passionate about. And here's why I'm aligned with your company mission. Continue to refine that value story. So it's very clear to an employer why, what it is that you bring to the table. 2, and the second thing that I'm doing with her and I'm sharing with others, guys, we need to leverage our networks. If you're in college today, you need to be in there, figuring out what does your alumni network looks like, who are in your career department. You need to get out there. You need to be talking to the alumni. If they're in the space, you better figure out who are the people that you know at Microsoft, who are the people you know at Netflix, who are the people that you know at Amazon, who are the people you know at Tesla. leverage these networks. Your school is a great place to do that, to use alumni. LinkedIn is another powerful tool. What I found is a lot of people, especially when they do well, they want to find a way to help other people. So do not be shy. Leverage your network. The third, which is where I'm trying to get her to now, is figure out where are these conferences, some in-person conferences that you can get to, where some of these companies are doing their hiring in person. I know for me in the past, when I came out of undergrad, I went to NSBE, National Society of Black Engineer. They have an annual conferences. Companies are there, they're hiring. When I graduated with my MBA, I went to National Black MBA Conference. Companies are there, they're hiring. Go there in person, because sometimes the virtual world doesn't always create the connection you need. It might be easier for you to be able to sell yourself in person when you're talking to a recruiter. You can really gel with somebody at that company, and that can then sprung you to other ways. So that is my big key 3. If you're on the job today, I'm saying get clear on your value message and how you bring value for an employer. 2, leverage network. Your school, LinkedIn, wherever you know people, you need to be talking and getting out there. 3, conferences and in-person career fairs are, I think, a gold mine.
Exactly. And just to set it up for Busola, I think, I'm not sure what, we have different economic cycles. It used to be that, I think one could argue that, in the from 2017 to 2019, 2020, that was the employee market. But now we have shifted away from being the employee market to the employers market. And now employers today, given that they've realized that they can do more with less with automation of AI and other stuff, they are not, in terms of the rate at which they're going to be hiring, might not be bloated versus how it used to be. So I guess my question to you, Busola, is what are potential degrees that people should be considering to make them valuable in the marketplace? Because trust me, employees know that they can do more with less. So now you have to bring more than just your GPA. You have to bring something extra to the table for them to hire you. So what are some of the things that I guess you'd be advising your friends or family around?
So I think what Toyyib said is spot on. And I forgot, I went to a meeting once where they basically said your network is your great worth, or something of that sort. So it's basically how big of not even how big of a network you have, but how valuable of your network you have determines a lot, because that can get you into doors that are not even open, or doors that you didn't even know was there and could open up for you, right? And get you a seat at the table. In terms of degrees, I can't say that, hey, if you major in this degree, you're going to be good. When I was in college, in high school, junior year, I went to a career service fair that we had in high school. And the one thing that stood out to me was an accountant came and said, if you major in accounting, you're going to have a job for life. That's all I heard. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be an accountant. Yeah. Regardless whether I liked it or not, I was good with numbers. So I was like, hey, why not? And that's all I did. I was single focused in college. I graduated with my undergrad and my graduate degree in accounting, but I don't even do anything accounting related now, right? I'm in risk management. I'm in compliance. So at the end of the day, it's like knowing how to pivot, knowing how to sell yourself. In my field, in the consulting world, I have people that are in consulting that had a classics degree, that have a bio degree, that have a fine arts degree. And you're like, psychology degree, like, wait, I don't get this. But they found a way to make it work, and they're excelling in what doing. And you never would have thought those, what I call non-traditional degrees in the business world, are excelling in the business world.
Yeah.
Right? So it's one, how do you sell yourself? What experiences are you getting outside of what I call your standard education? What internships are you having? What shadowing days are you having? Who are you talking to? And what are you interested in? Because at the end of the day, in today's world, depending on what field you're going into, it's grueling out there. You're working 60, 80, 90 plus hours. Are you ready for that lifestyle? Are you ready to do that? And if you're not, it's like, how can you find a balance?
Yeah.
It's definitely, I would say it's very hard out there for a job market, because one, like you said, it's the employer's field these days. They get to pick, they have the top of the pick from people that are getting laid off. So as a new graduate, you're competing with people that have way more experiences. You look at a lot of all these jobs that are for entry levels, and you look at the experience requirements, and you're like, wait, I'm a
ridiculous.
And you're saying I need to have this. How do I have this? Like, who's going to give me a chance? Who's going to open the door and say, you know what, Busola, I know you just graduated. Come in. Let me train you. Let me set you up for success. And a lot of companies are even shying away from that because we millennials or whoever that comes after us, I don't know what the terminology is, are getting smarter because we're not staying with companies for life, right? We understand sometimes that jumping ship every 2 to 3 years is the fastest way to get an increase in pay. I know people that are changing jobs every 2 years because all they care about is what your paycheck looks like. They're not loyal to any companies because
Show me the
when we look
money.
at layoffs, companies sometimes, unfortunately, are not loyal to the employees.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to do what's best for me and my family.
No, I agree. And I go to Ayo
Hard.
just
It's
to
hard.
Ayo, I wanted to tee this up for you. It
Hmm.
sounds like to me that everybody who goes to college today, everybody wants the blue. I mean the white collar job. I want to be in the office. I want to be typing, looking at screens. But in the construction industry, there's labor shortages. You guys are looking for people to come work. So I guess from your perspective, how can you maybe convince somebody who has a Harvard degree, Harvard MBA to say, listen, construction is a new, listen, there's a lot of money in it because a
Be a
lot of
welder.
college graduates don't want to work the
Be a
blue collar.
welder.
They
A
don't
welder.
view working for they view that, if I'm working in construction, I'm working in sales, it's like it has a little stigma to it. So from
Yeah.
your perspective, how do we,
Right, so-
Encourage
nudge?
people to do that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I believe there's some damages that's already done
Mm.
that we're just working kind of backwards on, truthfully. And there's it's just unfortunate. Right now we remember, we have carpenters right now, and this is really a construction issue. Is we really have people actually starting to retire, and there's not enough people coming in on the entry side, especially on the work, the blue collar jobs, really.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I believe even my job is at risk later in the future, because it's not
Mm.
only just AI. I think robotics is even coming in, and the combination of
Mm.
that could be very dangerous. But
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to like, all this kind of trade jobs and stuff like that, that's
Hmm.
where the trade degree and those kind of certifications comes in, because we never really kind of encouraged that, when we were young. What we were really thought was really to go to college, right? Because
Hmm.
college was kind of like the best way to go, and I still think it is to a certain degree. But we never really talked about, the trade trainings that you could actually go for and actually
Yeah.
do as well, right? Um, and I believe even on in that avenue, there's a lot of people that I know who are actually very wealthy right now, millionaires,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
actually started out as
Making six
welders.
figures.
Yeah, who are really
Doing
welders,
construction
and
job, but
now they
because
own their own
somebody,
business. Yeah, and
exactly.
like I know a very good friend of mine's, and he actually started. You would see his resume. He's been doing this for 25 years, right? He really started out as a welder, got himself into iron worker, and then when the opportunity came, he actually owned a business. He has enough resume to be able to get those capitals going, and then actually become a millionaire right now. He actually supplies the entire Mid Atlantic.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's kind of showing those history to people sometimes. I think before they make that decision of if they wanted to go the white collar way or if they wanted to go the blue collar way would really kind of be helpful. And during our own time, of course, like I said, we millennials we question everything, right? During
Hmm.
like, if you think about it, our baby boomers did not really kind of have that opportunity. They just only saw it one way. We
Yeah.
are the ones that, even when we see that one way, we still question that and say why, right? And it has us thinking of other ways, right? And I believe, as our kids grow up and as we actually have young ones coming up, we should be able to not just tell them, hey, this is the only way you should go, as much as we should just tell them, hey, there's more options out there, right?
And I
Here's
think we're gonna see
everything
more of
you
that,
have.
right?
Here are the pros and the cons, and
Hmm.
just kind of guide them instead of
Yeah.
telling them exactly what it is. And that way, they'll be able to see exactly what they need to do. I believe
What works for them.
in the trade world, where we have carpentry and we have iron workers and we have, concrete workers and stuff like that. We see just the dirty work, but we don't
Right.
see
Yeah.
the future or the reward of what they could actually get with
Could
it, or
be.
where they could actually get with
That's a good
that
point.
itself. And
Yeah.
I believe when we start giving examples enough to be able to show that, hey, look at that guy that actually owns a concrete company, 15 years ago he was this, right?
Yeah.
And this
Mm-hmm.
is where he is now, right? I believe
Yeah.
you should be able to kind of show that to the new generation coming before
Agree.
they make the decision, right? On
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they really want to go. It gives them that power that they feel good about what they've made. And all we're just doing is just guiding them through it, right? I
Yeah.
believe mentorship is one of the most underrated things that you actually have because when you have a mentor or when you actually like what you like I would say, when you'll be able to kind of feel confident about what you do. Because when you do not have a mentor and you're going into that island alone, everything you do, you still question it, even though it's the right thing, and nobody's there to tell you, yeah, you did
Don't
it
do it.
right. You still question it, and then you might just go the wrong way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
No, I
And
agree.
Hey, and
And
I
again,
I'll
believe
just
that's what it is.
I just want to add that I think that's part of our responsibility, right? To be able to be that, so we don't become that one narrow-minded of just go to college. Like we become more the people who are training and letting them know there are multiple options. How do we help you really succeed both in the personal and the professional world? Caleb,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
throw it back to
Yeah.
you there.
right. No, I
Busola,
agree.
one final word before we transition to the next topic.
Yeah,
Any
I
final
think
words on
what
this?
everyone has said and what AU has said is definitely spot on. Where it's like we need to just expose kids before they even get to college. So I think a lot of the responsibility lies in not only the parents but also the schools, right? Because a lot of high schools are tracked on graduation rate. They're tracked on what colleges as your student gets into, right? So until we start changing those metrics measurement, it's going to be hard to start that early on introduction because everybody wants to be the best of the best and be sure they're at the top tier of what they're being measured by, right? And if we're not looking at it in terms of like what trade schools are folks going into or what trade school, what trade manship programs that they're going into, their simple focus is going to be on guiding students in college, even if that might not be the right move for them.
No, I agree. And I think one final thing I wanted to add here is I had a mentor who told me, they say, Caleb, you don't get paid based on your time. You get paid based on the value you bring to the marketplace. And value is determined by what? The principle of rarity. What, how rare something is determines how valuable it is. So now, if I'm somebody in college today, let's say I went to HBCU college or an Ivy League college, and everybody's applying to go to Wall Street and consulting, those kind of grandiose job, I'll look the opposite. Why? Because I'm going to be the cream of the crop, and now I can negotiate higher salary. And not only am I going to get better pay, but I'm only going to get value out of the experience from the job that I'm going to be getting. So speaking about value, and again, let's spend about 3 to 5 minutes on this topic. So let's keep our stuff succinct. It sounds like today in the dating market today, credit score is now a determinant of value. To get a date, it sounds like you have to have a higher credit score. It says this, and this article was from the Financial Times. It said the title was a dating app with credit scores. What's not to love? Okay, and it says here that, but if you are looking for long-term love, a higher credit score could be a proxy for stability. You're able to pay your bills and reliability. You pay them on time. In a week where the U.S. Consumer debt hit all-time levels, is also a sign of responsibility. You haven't taken on more debt I can handle. However, it is not a proxy for wealth, though I suspect many people will incorrectly surmise that a high credit score equals a high bank balance. A spendthrift with a bunch of credit card who manages them carefully could score highly. Yet a multi-millionaire living in an entirely debt-free existence could have what's known as a thin file or hence a low credit score. So my question to you, I'll pose it to Busola, as the our guest for this. I wanted to ask you, do you think this app is a good idea in terms of the dating market? Like, it's integrating a credit score, and would you pick somebody if you're not married, let's say you're single, and somebody showed you that, hey, I have an amazing, I have 760, 800 credit score. Would you be interested in hitting the like button and say, hey, let's
I
go on a
think
date?
it's complicated. I think the summary you have on the screen speaks to it, right? Because it depends. I think this probably might work more for like older people. I would probably say be like 30 plus who've had a financial history as opposed to people who are just getting out of college, right? Because yes, having a great score is good because then okay, you know what, if I'm going to end up with this person, we can buy a house together, we can buy a car together, we can do whatever, right? But at the end of the day, there's more to it than that. You can have a great credit score and be a shitty person. Like, what's the priority to you? A shitty person or a good credit score, right? And as the article also said, if you're someone that stays away from credit and you have your credit history is light, what does that say? That I'm not a good person to date? So on a personal note, if I was not married, yes, I might consider someone's score, but it will not be a deciding factor.
Oh no, if it's neck and neck, and somebody's got somebody's at an 820, and somebody's coming here with 581. Listen, okay, it's like a college admission. It's like evaluating college admission, college application, right? Like, listen,
well, that's
you guys are equal,
essay, right? What's like understand what the story is behind the 5 something and the 8 something, because a score doesn't give you a full picture of a person,
that
right?
Is true. That is true.
8 something and then something happened in your life where it's like they had a medical emergency or they had to help out a family member, and unfortunately things just tumble down and they're going through a bad patch, but that might be the best person for you.
You're right. And to that I say, show me some receipts. I need some medical bills. Listen, guys, listen, okay, show me. Let me just quickly answer this. Whenever you hear an idea, some idea hits you, you're like, I don't know, on the surface it hit me wrong, like, oh, credit score. But then when you start to think about it, guys, in this society where everything is costing more than it ever does, college is more expensive, home ownership is out, we all deserve love. But do I think credit score could be a data point? Listen, when we all dating, we all collecting data point. Let's be honest. I'm collecting data point on what is this person's value and their vision. And I think you can use credit scores as a way. It's not necessarily, to your point, I don't think it's an end all be all. And if I was on a date and the first thing a woman asked me was, what's your credit score? I will be taken back by it. But can a good credit score show a sense of responsibility, accountability, and stability? I think so, right? And if you're looking for a long-term partner, is that a good way to see how we align value-wise? Because let's be honest, if I'm dating and I see somebody who has maxed out their credit cards because it was from trips to Miami for spring break, I'm not sure that's my person. I've got to be honest. That's okay. And maybe I'll find my person along the way. So on the surface, I didn't like the app, but as I thought about it more, you know what? I like it. So if they're thinking about investors, they should call me.
So I use something else, I swear.
That's a good point. I think, just to add some footnotes what Toyyib said, I think credit score is definitely a function of value. You could determine the value system of the person. Is this person a spender or a saver? That this person likes to go out to eat or eat at home? That this person, what is their value system? And then you can figure out, does my value system match with that person's value system? And can I deal or manage some of those, values that might not be congruent with mine? So it's just one component to it, but I don't think, credit score is definitely does not paint a bigger picture as to how this guy will manage money effectively or how successful this guy will be in the future. So I definitely agree with.
Hey, what's your thoughts?
Hey, any final words?
For some reason, it reminds me of that episode in Black Mirror where people were being scored, and that's kind of like the new thing now, where if you have a bad score, it kind of dictates like your entire future and stuff like that. But when it comes to credit score, I really think it's a moot point, truthfully. And the reason why I just think that way is just because your credit score might not be low forever. And the person with the highest credit score, hey, look, credit card repair companies are making money right now, right? So if Busola was that person I wanted to aim for, and I know that's what she really likes is a high credit score, all I need is 2-3 months of credit repair service to get Busola to does that make sense to you? So it's like kind of like,
yeah,
I feel like there. That could be a little bit deceiving to people, right? It's easily manipulated to my own thing. But yes, I believe credit score does tell you a little bit of like kind of looking through a mirror. Through a window into somebody's life on how they actually move. I believe it does. I don't think it really gives love because to me, it's just maybe I'm still all into my. Look, I'm a notebook guy. Like, I don't know if you've seen the movie, right?
Uh-huh.
But I'm like into that kind of thing where I feel like there is more to it than just just the score side. And I think
Yeah.
I think it's a Western thing, truthfully.
Listen,
But
man. Hey, with the way home
credit score
prices are
just
going, student loans.
yeah.
Listen, I love too. I'm a lover. All right, but I'm gonna need to see some credit score while we at it.
You got you got 850. I love you.
Listen, okay.
I
You all
loved you a
right.
long time ago. But
Okay.
no, it's it's I do frown on it. I'll be honest, because I just feel like it doesn't really kind of paint the full picture of what you
Yeah.
could end up becoming or where you could actually go. Because there might be somebody who has financial literacy and you've just never had it based on the village in which you was actually kind of growing up in. I mean, we have communities out here where everybody, the highest credit score you would see, if you look at a slew of a community, is like 450 or something, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The
So
community
you
is
need
important.
somebody to kind of lecture you to be able to come up, right? So maybe that balance is there to kind of bring you up.
Yeah.
So, and
All right.
somebody might use
Appreciate it.
that the platform for that, right? Is
Yeah.
maybe they might actually say, hey, look, I got a good credit score. Maybe this person just doesn't have it. I still love them. Maybe I could just kind of give them that financial literacy. But if I make my judgment based on that, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people will be up here. That I think that wealth gap gonna be wide.
It's gonna
Like,
be wild. That is true. That is true. I see that. All right,
you
Caleb,
And
go
know,
it
ahead.
goes, it goes back to the financial literacy, right? If you're those are I think those are one of the things that you speak to with someone once you realize that you're in a serious relationship or before you even get into a serious relationship. So that way you know who's strong in what areas and who needs work on, right? There are people that I've worked with where it's like things just happen and like it impacted their credit because they didn't know any better and no one ever taught them all those things. But after a few months of like financial education and literacy, they fully understood it. And like within a year, within 2 years, they were able to turn things around. So it's like,
Yeah.
and they're great people. So it's like, are you willing to give them a chance just
Yeah.
because their score doesn't meet what you
right,
think you need? Or are you going to say, you know what, you're below my threshold, peace out?
right.
Caleb, attorney, I know we gotta wrap up here, but what I'm hearing is we need a second podcast where we can have a conversation around at what number of the day do you have to show credit score and where you stand financially so we can
I
evaluate
like that.
this.
I like that.
Yes,
Caleb,
and
I'll
I
be
think
in it.
I'll
I would
go to
love
everyone
to.
you.
I would
will
love to talk
fall
about
on
that
that
one.
call because I believe everyone on
Awesome.
this call is married. It might be good to include some single people in there. I think you probably get the best perspective
That is true.
I
from
That
agree.
them,
is true.
apart
All
from
right.
folks that are married and are not in the market. So
Right.
That's so true. Well, that wraps up episode 5 of the World Way podcast. We hope you enjoyed this informative session around personal finance and how to manage your money effectively, and also how to navigate the current market conditions, the job market conditions. At Wealth Wave, we are always eager to feed the mind and challenge the times when it comes to investment philosophies, market insights, and real estate strategies. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our future episodes. And please spread the word. And also follow our guests. Ayo, like, where can people follow you on Instagram, Facebook? I mean, how do people follow you? Do you have any link that we can drop in the
You
bottom?
really put me on the spot there. Because I'm not too big on the social media side, but
Okay. All right.
um, I I would say everything is private. I really
Yeah.
wish. I
Catch him
really
on the
Okay.
wish.
All right.
streets. Yeah, when y'all see me in the
You don't
streets,
even
catch
share
me.
your-
All right, we
Yeah,
got
maybe
it.
catch me outside and stuff. Catch me
Good.
on this
Go
podcast
ahead.
because I will be coming back because I'm really honored that I'm here today. So I'll
Awesome.
be
Well,
here again.
Busola, anything that you like to share, any final words you like to share, and so your Instagram handle or any social media handles that you have.
financial education, financial literacy is key. Speak to your friends. If anyone would like to connect with me to hear more, definitely reach out to the owner of the podcast, Caleb and Toyyib, and they can put you in contact with me. It's just educate yourself, educate yourself, educate yourself.
I
Awesome.
agree.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for joining, and we'll see you guys next week on the next spot. Bye bye. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.